Everybody always remembers and looks at the biggest, the fastest and the most expensive cars of all time. But what about the cars that you or me might have bought? What about the car for the average working car enthusiast? This is the top 5 sports cars that your dad or granddad might have owned. Just before we get going, all of my financial conversion and salary sources are in the description. Please feel free to comment if you have any better sources or some personal memories or even some different sports car suggestions. So, straight in at number 5 is the Jensen Healey. That launched in 1972 and cost around £1,800, which was 30,300-ish in today's money. The average salary in 1972 was £36.70 per week-ish, or 32,100 today per annum. So it's the most expensive of our Everyman sports car list, which is part of the reason it's only at number 5. The other part is it's not exactly a looker. But keep watching, it does have sort of other redeeming features. It was built after the production of the amazing Austin Healey 3000 had ended. It had quite a troubled start to life as it had to appeal to European and US customers. The Healey 3000 was imported quite a lot into the US, so it needed to be put into production quite quickly and very cost effectively, as is often the case with British cars, especially of that era. It had tricky performance and emissions goals to meet, especially for US market and in later life as well, the safety targets. So the engineers went through lots of different engines for Vauxhall, Ford and BMW. Things such as reliability issues, couldn't meet the sort of production targets they needed, meant that in the end Lotus offered their new twin cam engine and Jensen accepted. So it actually got one of the best engines it could have possibly got, which was the 1973cc twin cam 16 valve engine, which had far superior performance to anything else, 144 horsepower, and the car only weighed 1,092 kilos, so 0 to 60 time 8.3 seconds, and could do 119 miles an hour, which was seriously quick in 1972, especially for a little British sports car. Unfortunately, 1976 was the end of the Jensen Healey and Jensen Motors altogether, but they had managed to build 10,503 cars at the end. Quite a sad story, especially for the company that made the Interceptor, one of my personal favourite cars of all time, but that was not an Everyman sports car. So, straight in at number 4, the Triumph Spitfire, specifically the Mark IV. That was built in 1970 and lasted to 1974. One of these would set you back £985 for the base model in 1970, or around 19,300 in today's pounds sterling. The average salary then was about £30 a week, or £30,000 today. So more than achievable for the average British worker who wanted to have a bit of fun burning leaded petrol, if you remember leaded petrol. Still about today if you're into the world of aviation. Turns your fingers white if you put your fingers in it. Not good for you, don't recommend it. So it's not a triumph of styling compared to like the Stag or the TR6, but it's definitely not hideous like a TR7. But it is a good contender for an Everyman sports car, with a 1296cc 4-cylinder with twin carbs. Did only produce 63 horsepower, but it only weighed around 780 kilos. Could hit 60 in 15.8 seconds. Could do 90 miles an hour, so it wasn't a slouch either for the time. It was pretty economical too. It could do around 32 miles per gallon, that's imperial gallons. Obviously depending on how heavy footed you were. With production of the Mark IV of around 70,000 units made. Definitely a deserving candidate for this list. I'm not going into massive detail. I could go into detail about how the suspension setup and everything was. I could go into horrendous detail about it all. I'm an engineer by trade and I find it all fascinating, but this is just a top 5 list of what I think is deserving to be here. Please feel free to comment. Please do. So straight in at number 3 is the Austin Mini Cooper S, the 1071cc, launched in 1963. It was only made for 1 year, and it could have been yours for £695, which was £17,665 in today's sterling. The average salary then was around £16.20 a week, or £21,400 today. So it was the British people's car, was the Mini, so it was exceptional value. Why specifically the 1071cc model? Because there was lots and lots of Mini Cooper variants. Yes, there was, and they're all contenders. But the 1071 was a limited production car. They only made it for a year. But how many limited production run cars can the average working man actually afford to buy, especially nowadays? What's the most recent one? The Yaris GR, but that was sold out immediately and was selling for double, triple its book price. So doesn't happen very often. So I felt the 1071 specifically needed a place here. So anyway, with two well balanced carbs, the little 4-cylinder kicked out 70 horsepower. It only weighs 640 kilos. It'd do 60 mile an hour in 13 seconds. And despite it having the huge and characteristic 120 mile an hour Smith Speedo, I actually have one behind me, located in the middle of the dashboard. It was only able to hit 99 miles an hour, which was pretty damn quick for the time, but a bit of a letdown if you saw 120 mile an hour on the Speedo. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to look at as well, if you ask me. In any colour as well, any colour. And unlike other cars mentioned as well in this video, you could still drive one today and not feel totally outdated in terms of style and the way it drives or stops. And in one form or another, these were still made until the year 2000. And as well as, you can expect around 30 miles to the gallon, so it was even affordable to run, and again still sort of is by today's standards. So what's not for your dad or granddad to like? So, in at number 2, if you think of a British sports car, chances are you're thinking of an MGB GT. You just think of it in your head. So coming in a very close second is the MGB GT. It was launched in 1965 and lasted right up until 1980, so that's a 15-year run. It did cost £998 for the base model, which is about £24,000 in today's money. The average salary then around £18.90 a week, so 23,700-ish in today's money per year. It's a pretty good value, to be fair. Powered by the 1798cc B series engine built by Austin, again twin carb, 97 horsepower, very powerful for the time. Top speed 104 mile an hour, 0 to 60 time just about 13 seconds, so seriously quick for the day. Fuel consumption bit poor, 24 miles per gallon, but then again it was a 1800cc engine basically, and it's a toy, and fuel was only about £4.60 a gallon back then in today's money, so it wasn't as much of a consideration. I mean, it can't have been that big a deal either. They sold 125,000 of them in 15 years all over the world, so it was definitely a popular one for everybody, literally everybody. And as I said, it is the iconic British sports car, so they must have done something right. And anyway, the one we've all been waiting for, the one in the top spot, the Everyman's sports car of choice, the Austin Healey Sprite Mark 1, or the Frog Eye Sprite. That was built only for 3 years, 1958 to 1961, and cost £669 in 1958, or £19,192 in today's money. So definitely not Jaguar prices, or Porsche prices, or anything. The average salary in 1958 Britain was around £12.70 a week, or £18,945 in today's money. So it was just over a year's salary. but just over. I mean, if you think about it today, if you go out and buy, I don't know, what's this, an MX-5 for example, you know, 25,000 plus, you know, you're still in the same sort of ballpark. And it's a beautiful, beautiful car. I've driven one, it's fantastic. They look amazing, especially in red, but I mean, any colour you choose, you can't go wrong. It was supposed to actually have pop-up headlights, but accountants ruined that idea. So it's got its characteristic headlights on top of the bonnet, and that's how it got its name, Frog Eye, or Bug Eye in America. It had a basically bomb-proof, proven A-series 948cc engine, producing just about 43 horsepower with twin carbs, twin SU carbs actually. This meant it would do 0 to 60 in 20.5 seconds. Pretty blistering for a little sports car in 1958. And it would do nearly 83 miles an hour, which again, pretty blistering. It had lots of other parts borrowed from other cars already in production, such as the front suspension was actually from the Austin A35. The steering was from the Morris Minor. All of that was to keep production costs down. I mean, it didn't even have a boot lid. If you wanted to get in the boot, you had to fold the seats forward. It was all to keep it all rigid. It was very clever actually how they did it. It was cheap to run. It was tested by a magazine called The Motor in 1958, and they actually got 43 miles per gallon out of it. That's again imperial gallons. It was easy to maintain. Parts were inexpensive and readily available because it was built from stuff that was already in production and had been for a while. All of these things, you know, with a reasonable price, and that's why it's my number one Everyman classic British sports car. And it's clearly not just me. They made 48,987 Frog Eye Sprites in just 3 years. So, thank you for watching everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon. Bye bye.